All of YouTube is full of amazing BTS films. But who are the heroes behind these films? And where did they learn to do it? In this video, I'll break down how to shoot a BTS film and successfully capture someone else's project. I will cover the difference being the main shooter or DOP on the day and filming BTS. Suggest a strategy that works for me and then make some recommendations that you can follow if you find it useful. But before I start, why would you want to film a BTS film? So one of the main reasons it's great to film BTS is it's a way into the industry. You can be a low-risk role on a project and meet interesting people. You can find a mentor and it's your way to find a little spot on their set. In my case, I really looked up to Jock Crawford and he basically taught me everything I know. And that's why I'll be using the footage that I shot while filming on the BTS on his Sony campaigns. And some of it will be the BTS from projects I shot. So what's the difference between being the main cameraman or the DOP on the day and shooting the BTS? The main cameraman is busy with a project that he needs to know. He is focused on his own camera work and in most cases also directing the scene, crew and models. And this requires you to be invisible most of the time. Something that you might not expect to be different is that you have to shoot in a documentary style. As a DOP, I struggle making this change, but it is crucial to make a mind shift towards what products are being used, who is using it, how it's being used, when it's being used, etc. If a specific product is being used, you need to capture as much as possible of that product. What's important is the use of the product, the features, buttons, lights, whatever catches your eye. The full setup where it's being used. Make sure to get the whole environment, the product and the person using it that is usually a brand or representing the company. What you don't want to do is break the focus of the main shooter. You probably heard this the last time you were a child, but you must be seen, not heard. But in a bit, I will tell you the one exception where you can stop the set and make yourself heard. Okay, since you're now a silent shooter, or as I call it, a ninja shooter, you now need a strategy. The first thing I usually ask for is a brief from the main shooter or the company commissioning the BTS. If they do not have a clear brief, ask them what is the goal of the BTS and what's the main features of the product or experience. So this is the one exception where you can interrupt the filmmaker. When a scene is done and you're moving on to the next, you can tell the filmmaker that you did not manage to get a shot where he uses the product, or that you did, but you would like to redo it and mimic the movement. But when things are easy, you can push the set kind of in your direction and get the shots you have a vision for. For instance, when Jock finished this scene in the garage, I stopped him and asked him to fake a few shots so I can shoot him from the front and get a few main features of the camera I was shooting BTS for. Next is the key message of this whole video, and I call it the golden rule of shooting BTS. Wide, medium, tight. I can't emphasize this enough. The editor of the behind the scenes need variety, and the best way to achieve this is to start with a wide shot capturing the whole set, all the people in it and all the equipment being used. This is usually your best context shots. Then you do a few medium shots, only focusing on the talent using the product. And lastly, you shoot the details of the product. This will secure you with a full range of cuts for the editor and safety for storytelling. But again, you're not making art. You have to capture the information and shoot in a documentary style. Okay, let's run through a few examples. Here is Jock shooting an interview. So I film a wide that creates context. Then a medium shot of him behind the camera and then a close-up for more specific detail. Next up, it's the same thing. I position myself further away from the scene and then on the second take, I come closer to focus on Jock doing his thing. And the next, I do a close-up on the camera. As you can see, it feels like it's telling a small little story and you have full context. In the next setup, there wasn't much to film. So I would get the wide, then the medium, but after that, I start playing with whips and reveals after the basic shots have been covered. Clear communication also helps a lot when you're shooting BTS. best way a filmmaker can help you anticipate when to shoot is if he says rolling, and that's when you should already be shooting. Then when he says action, then you should be rolling for a long time already.
And action.
Action.
A good rule of thumb is to do first 2 angles of each on your wide, medium, and your tight, and then you move on to your creative juices. So after this incredibly dramatic description of how to shoot BTS, I have a few more tips that might help smash your job even better. Shoot in 50 or 60 frames a second, and that on the 180-degree rule is 100 and 120 shutter speed, depending on your electricity zone. This gives your editor options, especially if you need to make up a little bit more time. You can put it in slow motion. Ask the editors if they want specific audio or vox pops. Every now and then, take one of these mics, you pull someone aside, and you have them talk about the project. Shoot on a gimbal. You can easily track your subject, and when you have to move fast, the footage still looks professional. For me, this is the most important. Use a 24-70 lens. When you shoot on a 24-70 and you're on 24 millimeters, you automatically have a wide angle. Then you just zoom in and you're on a 70. That means you already got 2 shots covered of your sequence on a scene. And then you just move around to get the mediums. When you have a variety of shots, the editor will love you. Just trust me on that. Then lastly, remember to schedule some time with the editors to drop your footage. This is something a lot of people forget about, and it can cause some extra admin. We don't like admin. And that's it. In conclusion, be a ninja, a silent shooter, shoot behind the scenes. Then variety is king, shoot in an informational way, and remember, wide, medium, tight. Then lastly, I have a strategy for the day, and be sensitive for the energy on set, where you can interrupt and where you cannot interrupt. And that's it from me. Hope you learned something. Go make your films, a lot of money, or at least someone's day. Cheers.
Alpha.